Okay. All right. Will do.
Is this like for us? That's like the
Coffee, if you want any coffee.
Sure. We give them a couple more minutes. We have a parking problem.
Yeah.
And if we have if we don't have a training, it's fine. But if we have a training,
Oh, are
which
you
we
having
do,
a
we
training
have a
going on?
project-based learning training, then.
That's a Jim question. I imagine he would, but
Sure, they're coming in here. We're gonna have to hand it over.
Okay, I'll just repeat.
yeah, better to repeat than have them come all the way up. Just summarize it.
Yeah.
Oh, they want to know why.
There you go. See. Where do you live?
I live in Petaluma, really near, well, about a mile from Casa Blanca. I will when there's a downtown station.
We have the same. We have like walk to the yeah. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer here if you don't have to worry about it.
Well, yeah, sometimes I could maybe even just leave my car over work if I don't need it. Take the train to and from several days or something like that. My wife takes it because she works down in Terra Linda and she takes it 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Saves her, especially this morning, going south this morning.
Oh yeah, there was.
Where's your trophy?
It's in my office. Did you see it? They're like, "What is that?" I'm like, When it
I
gets
think
funny.
you're right. I think you should the 3 of you that were there
Look
should,
it, see?
should raffle it off to the other 2.
So Clay, whenever you have a chance, give me a call about the
Yeah.
registration. If it's come up priority, I'm just saying it's on my
You got it. We had a big event last week, so I did that, and then this week's crazy. So yeah, I got a big post-it note to get in touch with you. So, all right, no worries.
You're gonna start?
Greg Mack is a trustee also.
I can introduce our trustees.
Oh, I'll let you introduce the trustees.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, if you want to.
That's perfect. But I'll mention Eric, that we have a council member here.
Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
good. And I guess you guys just hired, or the city just hired a new city manager. Michael,
Oh.
did you see that? That's him right there, the African American guy.
Oh.
Yeah, he just started. But if you start introduce him, then you got to introduce everybody else, I guess. So.
See.
All right, ready? Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
I have an extra one here.
Oh, thanks. Good morning. Thank you all for getting here. I hope parking wasn't too much trouble. Welcome to the first annual State of the District that is being sponsored, being co-hosted by the school district and the Chamber of Commerce, where we do an annual State of the City thing with the city, and the district approached us about doing a State of the District, which we think is critically important too. Education's a key component of a successful community and a successful business community, so we were more than happy to co-host with them on this. So with that, I want to make a couple of quick introductions. We have a council member here. Council member Eric Lucan is joining us today. Thank you, Eric. And we have another person joining us, walking past the wall. Good morning. I can't see who it is. Oh, the mayor the mayor. Who cares about the mayor? She's signing in. The mayor is signing in as if no one knows she is. So anyway, there she is, Mayor Athis. Welcome. And I also wanted to introduce a new person that's just joined our community about a week and a half ago. We have a new assistant city manager for the city of Novato that was just started a week and a half ago. His name's Michael Antoine. Michael, would you say hello to each other? So get to know Michael. They'll all approach you. You'll never remember who they are, so don't worry about it. And with that, let me say a couple words about Jim. Most of it will be boring, but a couple of them will be funny. But so he grew up in the East Bay, and we won't hold that against him. He also is a graduate of Cal Berkeley. We won't hold that against him either. He's a huge Bears fan, and we will hold that against him. He got his master's in teaching credential from San Francisco State. He started teaching at Tam High down in southern Marin. He became an assistant principal at Hill Middle School here in Novato. When was that, about 55 years ago, 60 years ago? He moved to Roseville and became the principal at Cooley Middle School up in Roseville. Then he decided, screw California, and he left. He went up to Oregon to become the assistant superintendent in the Corvallis School District up there. Then Oregon said, we don't want stinking Californians with us, so they kicked him back to California, and he came back to be the superintendent at Lucia Mar Unified School District. And then in June of 15, he became the superintendent here in Novato. He's been here a little over 2 years now. We let him stay. He passed his grace period, his honeymoon, and we decided you can stay a little while longer. He does reside here in Novato. He has 2 children in college, so now he and his wife are empty nesters, which I can't wait for that day. He enjoys tennis and yoga and, of course, golf. And just last week, his golf team in the Chamber Golf Tournament, they played we had a little mini tournament between the districts and the city within the Chamber tournament, and his team came in dead last.
So we got the highest score.
Got the highest score, and he has a really amazing trophy. He can show you after he speaks.
Leslie, can you get the trophy?
So we started a tradition that he has to keep this trophy in his office all year and hopefully give it away next year. This is the dead-ass last trophy that his team earned last week. He's very proud of that trophy. We'll put that right over here for you, Jim. All right. And with that, I introduce Superintendent to you, Jim Hogaboom.
Thanks, Coy. I'm very proud of that trophy, and I have a little problem with golf. I always think it's the highest score instead of the lowest score, so that's the way it goes. We did the same thing in the Novato Community Hospital Tournament, so we'll probably have that trophy for quite a while to be around, so there you go. Anyway, thank you so much for coming today. It's fun to give the first state of the district, and I'd like to introduce some of our board members who are here. So Maria Aguila, you want to stand up? Nice to see you. Morning. Tom Cooper back there. Debbie Butler and Greg Mack. Greg, there you go. Did I miss anybody? No, I think that's everybody. So again, thanks for being here. I really love being in Novato. As Coy said, when we first here, our 2 kids were born in Novato, and it's been great to come back. And I think one of the great things that I like about the city is that we are really so lucky and blessed to have so many community partners. And when I worked in Lucia Mar School District before, down on the Central Coast, there was a total dearth, for whatever reason, of community partnerships. So I think living in Novato and living in Marin in particular is an amazing place for our kids to be because of all these people that are sponsors and partners with us, including not only the Chamber of Commerce, but as I mentioned, there's so many, the Marin Community Foundation, the Haas Foundation, who gives us thousands and thousands of dollars. The Novato Community Hospital, who supports our trainers and our nurses, and I could go on and on. There's just so many people here that really, the Rotary Clubs and all that they do. But I really feel we have a great partnership with the city, Regan, the new city manager, and the police chief, and then Mark, the fire chief, and we get together once a month. And so it's just a great place to be because we can't do it alone, and we don't have the resources. So a lot of thanks to our community, and that's why I really love being in Novato. So I want to start today and talk about this young man. This was taken last week at the homecoming parade in downtown, which was a great idea, and San Marin won their homecoming game, so that was great. But this young man, his name is Phils Paul, and I spoke about him a couple times. I met him 2 years ago when I did a student shadow at San Marin. He was a sophomore back then. He had come over from Haiti, and after the devastating earthquake they had back there, and he had many relatives and friends who died in the earthquake and had a really tough time. So he came over here with his mom. They live in Novato, and he's just, we have a great diversity of students here in Novato, and I think Phil's really represents that, and he's just a great, hardworking young man. He's an English learner. He's making great progress there. He's a senior now. As you can see, he's I think a prince. I wasn't sure if he made it to the homecoming king or not, but he has just worked incredibly hard. He plays soccer. Again, comes from a background of poverty, and what's been really important to him when I talked to him was the connections that he made with his teachers. And one of the things I'm really proud about of our staff is the personalization that our teachers take to get to know each of our kids individually, because that makes all the difference. And so he has been supported, and he's thriving, and he's changed his mind. Some go into the military, but whatever their path, we need to make sure that we help them be successful as possible. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our vision and priorities, then we're going to talk about students and staff success, and then a little bit about district funding and our Measure G bond progress. We again are blessed that our community passed a big $222 million bond measure, and because we don't get any state money for facilities, that was really helpful, so we'll give you a little update about that. So first of all, who are we? And I'm sure a lot of people say this, but great organizations take great people. And I think that we are so lucky here in Novato to have great administrators, great teachers and staff. I just had an opportunity the other night to work with one of our custodians at Hamilton and work with her, and just an incredibly hard-working person. And I think across the board, I've never met really a greater group of people, and that's really what a school district is all about. We have we used to have over 8,000 students, and we're in declining enrollment, and we're about 54% white, 36% Latino, and 10% other students. And the Latino numbers continue to rise, and the number of Caucasians continues to decrease. There are some, obviously California, I think you've heard now, has more non-white students than white students, and we're on that trajectory. We have about 400 teachers, about 360 support staff. And we have 14 schools. We have a K-8 charter, I think one of the first 100 charter schools. We have a great relationship with them. With their Montessori approach, they do a great job. Hamilton is a K-8 school, and then other than that, we have 7 elementary, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, and a really thriving continuation school. So our vision really has started with this graduate profile. So when I first got here, we asked the question of what are the skills that our students need to have to be successful in the world, and worked a lot with our Rotary clubs and our business communities and our teachers, and really worked hard to try to define what are those skills they need to have. And the idea is that in the 21st century, having your content knowledge is not enough. That those things like communication and critical thinking are just as important. And our teachers have been really good at teaching content, but we need to switch towards these skills as well. And I would just say that in general, education has changed so dramatically because the world has changed so dramatically with technology, with all that the internet has brought. And I would argue that these skills that we've identified are just as important, if not more important, than the content. And obviously you have to have content. We don't want to be sharing ignorance out there. But these skills, I think, are really important. With the internet, you can find a lot of those. So we started with that, and that's really where we want to be. And now we're trying to say, well, what does that mean? We're coming up with rubrics for all those. The high schools and middle schools and elementaries are coming up with how do students evidence these? How do they show that they are an effective communicator or a critical thinker or a conscientious learner? So we're trying some of those now. The high schools, starting, I think, with this year, are going to have the freshmen, by the time they get to be seniors, do a defensive portfolio. So they will have to show through work that they've done how they've mastered each of these skills. And these are our 4 priorities: equity, student success, staff success, and community engagement. So we're going to talk about each of those. And I want to start with equity because it really is the North Star in our district. And it was really a priority when I was here back in the 90s when I worked at Hill Middle School. So a lot of credit to this district for making equity a priority. So we start with this a lot of times because it's a difference between equality and equity. So equality means the same, right? Everybody gets the same, but equity really means that depending on the needs, different students need different things. And again, our job, as I mentioned earlier, is to make sure that we give all of our kids what they need to be successful. So you can kind of see the box analogy where not everybody needs one box. You know, the kid on the right needs a couple boxes and the one on the left doesn't need any. And again, our job is to make sure we do all we can so that all students are successful. So we have what we call an equity imperative. It went through about 15 drafts. And really what it says is that we want all students to meet our A to G requirements so that they have the opportunity of whether they want to go to college or not. Again, we know that all students don't go to college, but we want them all to have that choice. And there's some work we need to do there. And then we also need to make sure that our kids meet the graduate profile. And unfortunately, some of our students of color, our kids in poverty, are further away from that goal, and some of our students have more advantages than others. And again, our job as a school district is to do, frankly, a better job of closing the achievement gap, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But we have a problem with that, so does the rest of our country, but it's a huge, we partner with the National Equity Project to help us think about ways we can try to make more kids successful, and that's been really helpful. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yvonne Chaidez, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Innovation and Curriculum and Ed Services, and he's going to talk a little about student success.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Buenos dias. So dual immersion, coming fall of 2018 to Linwood Elementary, it's going to be a destination school for sure. Students will be learning Spanish, 90% Spanish, 10% English. It's a 90-10 model. So we're going to start in the fall of 2018 with transitional kindergarten, and first grade. Over time, the entire school will be a dual immersion school at Linwood Elementary. Definitely it's gonna change a lot there, but all good for our kids. What you see up here is you see a variety of initiatives and programs that we're doing district-wide through career pathways. One example is at Novato High. This year we started the medical pathway for our students. At Marin Oaks, they're starting the Culinary Academy pathway. Thanks to the Rotary, I think Rotary got this huge stove, pretty cool. They're real happy about that. We also have this year the One2World that you see. All of our 5th, 6th, and 9th graders all have a device, a Chromebook, and that's theirs 24/7 to take home, to have with them. So a lot of our teaching and learning now is through blended learning. It's online. So we're definitely using more of the resources that are current and in the world. As you know, the books, they don't read their books, so that information is old right away. So we're looking at what information is out there that our students can use that is relevant right away in instruction. Preschools, this year we're partnering with the YMCA. Currently we have one preschool with the YMCA that's state funded at Loma Verde. And then this year we're going to be opening up Hamilton, Olive, and Lou Sutton coming soon. So that gives more access to that early literacy, more getting our kids early, getting them ready. One of the data that you'll see here is, I'll just read through the points here, but the one that I want to emphasize is the 76% of our kindergarten students entering kindergarten having participated in a preschool experience. So based on research, it's very important that our students attend preschool and get that early learning. What we see is that when they enter kindergarten, they have that they're school ready. So we also have transitional kindergarten, which helps with that process. Currently, about 60% of our students are meeting or exceeding the new Common Core standards, which started in 2015. So that was, we have quite a bit of work to do. As you can see, our goal is always 100%, obviously. Right now, a big focus that we have is in third grade literacy. Research shows that if students are not reading at grade level by third grade, there's other significant impacts later on in the future. So we really are putting a big emphasis on early literacy and getting our kids to the, reading at grade level by third grade. Some good news and data that I'm sure will continue to grow is right now 74% of our students are enrolling in college or post-secondary programs right after high school, which is very exciting. That they're moving on to their post-secondary and getting ready for their future careers. One thing that's very unique to Novato is we do have about right now 234 newcomers to our district. These are students that have been in the United States for 3 years or less. That number is continuing to grow. Last year it grew by 14 students. So last year it was 220. But that number continues to grow. Also, our English learners numbers continue to grow. Right now, we have about 1,250 English learners who are developing their academic skills in English. The good news is that our teachers are doing great work that we're reclassifying. The students are showing proficiency. So last year, we reclassified 250 students that showed mastery in English. So every year, we're getting kids to reclassify based on their performance of learning academic language in English. So some of the work that we have, areas of improvement that you see here is what we call the A through G requirements. This is a requirement by the University of California and Cal State University to enter those schools. This does not is not relevant to private schools. Private schools do not necessarily go by these requirements. They have other requirements, but these are for the state, for all school districts. So right now we have about 48% of our students meeting these requirements. Jim mentioned the equity imperative. So part of the equity imperative is really focusing on our Latino and African American students and students of poverty on providing more of those equitable opportunities and more resources to really increase so that they have that opportunity to go on to UC or CSU. So right now our high schools, this, I would say, for our high schools, if you were to ask any high school principal or administrator, they would tell you that right there is their number one priority at their schools. The next one that is significant, and it's a gatekeeper for many of our students, is math. So students right now, we're looking at our numbers in algebra and geometry, specifically students getting a DNF, because if a student gets a DNF, then they're not meeting the A3G requirements. In order to get the A3G requirements, you have to have a C minus or better. So that's one thing, is we're really focusing on strategies, on how we're going to increase the students passing math, specifically algebra and geometry, so that they're A through G eligible. And then the last one is the achievement gap. Right now, and it's very common throughout the nation and throughout the state, this achievement gap with our students of color, our students of poverty. And again, it goes back to that other slide where Jim had the students with the boxes, the equity and equality. We're looking at how can we put more resources to get our students up to par, and also provide those opportunities for them to meet proficiency. So we have quite a bit of work, but that's why we're here every day, is to continue to improve our practice, improve those areas for our students to be successful. All right.
Thank you, Yvonne. So again, I have the pleasure of working with three really capable assistant superintendents. And so the next one is Chris Koska, who's our assistant superintendent for human resources.
Hi, thank you all for being here. Thanks for having an interest in learning more about Novato Unified School District. So education's a people business, and that's demonstrated in our budget. About 85% of our district's budget goes towards compensation for our staff, whether that's our teachers or our classified staff. And so our number one goal in human resources is to attract and retain the best talent that we can in our positions. So that starts with having competitive salaries and benefits. We think we do a good job of that. That has brought us a very strong core of teachers that are our veteran teachers that stay with us through the years, through their career, retire from us. And then the other portion we have to do is we have to attract that other 10%. We have about 10% turnover a year due to resignations, retirements, et cetera. So our goal is to always identify our vacancies as soon as we can so that we can go out and recruit the best folks we can through the spring. We find that our peak hiring season, the peak time for hiring is March, April, May. So we're really actively recruiting in those months, particularly at our local universities, Sonoma State and Dominican, but also going out all across the Bay Area to the other universities and then other programs in the state of California that have very strong teacher education programs. So now we've got our core of people. How do you keep those people happy? How do you retain them? You make sure that you have strong leadership that supports them in their work. You make sure that they get the training and support necessary to achieve our district goals. You continue to articulate the district goals with them, and then give them the training and support that they need in order to be successful, to feel like this is a strong, healthy place for them to be. So we have some tools to help us with that. One of our biggest tools is our instructional coaches. We have 8 instructional coaches that are expert teachers that demonstrated just phenomenal education skills, but also showed us that they could be the kind of people that could teach adults as well as they could teach kids. We bring them in, we train them up, give them the support they need, focus their training on our district goals around equity, around project-based learning. And then we turn them loose to provide professional development to teachers, to go in and teach model lessons so that the teachers can see them and see how they can improve their practice. We have our coaches watch teachers teach and give constructive feedback that's not evaluative. They're not their evaluators. We keep those processes separate. And we use that to focus on our areas of need. You heard about some DNF rates in math. We got to really work on some grading practices, figure out why that's happening. We got to look at our math instruction. We've got some gaps there. We need to make some improvements. So we're giving our teacher coaches the skills necessary to do that. Finally, they're great delivery folks for professional development. They're trusted, they're respected in our communities. We also find that they can deliver that professional development at a cheaper rate than hiring a consultant to come in. So we work with our consultant trainers, they train our instructional coaches, then our instructional coaches can be the primary delivery agents for those trainings. So it's a cost-effective way, and it also builds greater trust and builds greater capacity in our system. We've just got a great team of folks. They're working hard to get better every day. Couldn't be more proud of them. So that's our staff success update.
Thanks, Chris. So our last priority besides equity, student success, and staff success is community engagement. We need to make sure, again, that we involve all of you guys and our parents to help our students, and I think we do a lot of good jobs on outreach. Last year, we totally revamped our website, so I think we're getting better on our communications. Leslie Benjamin in the back there is our Director of Communications, so staying on top of communications with social media and Facebook and Twitter and all that, and making sure that our website, which is pretty much the #1 way that people go to find out about the district, that's up to speed. We give a lot of surveys to our parents and staff about how things are going and how they're feeling. One big initiative that we are continuing with is called Student Voice. And the idea is that students are in the classrooms every day. They have a lot of input and knowledge about how to improve what we're doing, but we don't ask them. We don't ask students, how can we do a better job of teaching? How can we do a better job of meeting your needs? So that's the idea behind Student Voice. And even with our student board reps, is not just a report on the activities and things that are going on at the high school, but really to help us with the education that we're doing as well. And last year they weighed in on the lights at San Marin. They weighed in on the later start time at the schools. They weighed in on the dual immersion program. So having students give us feedback about how to improve our teaching and learning is really important. So we have each of those at our secondary schools. I have a district advisory committee that I meet with and really learning a lot. Math's a great example. Why aren't we asking our students, if we're not doing as good a job as we need to do with math, then asking our students, well, what can we do so that math is easier for you or that you can learn that better? We have community liaisons at every single one of our schools, and they do a lot of outreach to all of our parents, but particularly our Spanish-speaking parents. We did a solar project last year. We finished that so that all of our 10 schools that have that have solar, and that's really going to help us reduce our energy costs. We have a district advisory committee, which is mostly community members and some teachers. It gives us advice about our equity issues and our local control accountability plan. So in all, we really need to make sure that we continue to reach out to our community and get your ideas and feedback. We work with the English Language Advisory Committee. We work with our North Marin PTA group. Thank you, Lisa, for being here today. But our PTAs are really, really important so that we can make sure we have good communication with our parents. And last up, I'd like to introduce Yancey Hawkins. So we stole Yancey last year from the Larkspur Corte Madera School District, and he is our Assistant Superintendent for Business, and he's going to try to explain some of our financial situations. Yancey, thank you.
Drop that down a little bit. All right, thank you, and thank you for being here. I know you've been waiting throughout all of that to get to the important budget stuff that you wanted to hear. In terms of our budget is a little over $80 million for our general fund, which is a majority of all the things that we do in the district. As you can see from the pie chart here, 78% of our revenue comes from what are called LCFF sources. And those are basically the per student funding we receive from the state. It's the largest driver of all of our revenue sources. It's also important to note the parcel tax at 5%. We are extremely blessed in this community to be supported with a parcel tax, which is very difficult to pass in the state of California. And if you go around the state, you'll see how lucky we are to actually have that. It's important to note that our other federal revenue and state revenue sources, as well as the parcel taxes, are likely to be relatively flat in the coming future. So our true revenue driver of increased revenues for students, programs, and staff is those LCFF sources. As Chris Koska noted, we are in a people business, and 85% of our budget goes to salaries and benefits. And we've been extremely lucky over the past 3 years to be able to increase compensation out of the Great Recession by total compensation by approximately 20%, including health and welfare, salary increases, and increased contribution to STRS and PERS, which are the employee pensions that are offered by the state. In terms of per student funding, this is really small, but we're a little over $11,000 per student, which is about average in the state. But when you look at our surrounding districts, we are very much on the lower end in Marin County. We're the second lowest. We are the second on that list. Thought this would look bigger. But we are well below the national average, which is really a testament to our teaching staff and our other instructional staff to continue to succeed, given the low funding levels for the district, if you look at it Marin-wide and countrywide. We really have three challenges when we look at our budget moving forward. And the first is at the state level, while we've seen relatively healthy increases out of the Great Recession, those increases have started to slow, including this year, a very small increase at the state level. We also, as Superintendent Hogeboom noted, are moving a little bit into a declining enrollment state in the district. We've declined enrollment by about 1% a year from 2013-14, and as we are funded on a per student basis, declining enrollment means less money from the state. So we see this continuing for the next couple years and then flattening out starting in the early 2020s. In terms of expenses, our main challenge around expenses are increases to our state pensions. The legislature and the PERS board, they define and create the pension levels. The school board has no say in what pension benefits that the classified and certificated members of our staff will get, as well as the board has no action over the rates that they put together to fund those pensions. And due to some underfunding at the state level for many years, the state finally, back in 2013-14, increased the rates over a 7-year period from 8.25% of what we were paying for teachers to 19.1%. So a 10% annual increase. And as you can see in the schedule here, we're about halfway through that increase. We're about $3 million annually in additional pension costs that we are paying to the state, and we will be at approximately $6 million additional contributions by 2020-21. Just to kind of put that in perspective, that's 60 teachers. So that would be 15% more teachers. So that definitely is a challenge that we've been working through. In terms of our multi-year projections, as I've noted, those three factors have led to some issues in our multi-year projections, but the board has, through its strong leadership, having a strong fund balance that we can rely on as we move forward, and we would look to close that budget gap of approximately 3% through increasing revenue sources, like we've done in leasing some of our underutilized sites to the county educational, the County Office of Education, as well as looking for efficiencies, including what Superintendent Hogeboom noted around our solar program, and updating a lot of our energy efficiency and looking for other efficiencies. So, past the budget, we can talk about some exciting stuff. Measure G, we were very blessed to have the citizens of Novato approve the $222 million Measure G GO bond that is going to do so many wonderful things for our schools. So, just to kind of walk you through the process, after the board approved last summer our facilities master plan, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful 200-plus page document that documents all of the great things that we're going to be doing at our schools. We had to determine, because this is a 10-year process, we can't even get all of the $222 million right away with how the bonds. So we've gotten about $51 million so far in March, and we will receive another $53 million projected in 2020 for about $100 million of work that we're going to do over the first 5 years. So we brought together a 50-person committee, the Bond Implementation Committee. Just look around this thing. This is about the size of the Bond Implementation Committee that was across the district. It was a 4-month process to prioritize the projects that we would work on first. As you can see, you can't see the details of this, but this kind of is a overall look at our process. We looked at selection criteria of how we should make our criteria for selection of prioritization. We took that and moved to a top 15 list with the group, did a little bit more work, and it came up with the final list of projects which are moving forward. So from a district priority list, we have One to World. Assistant Superintendent Chaidez noted that we are over the next 3 years moving to one-to-one technology from 3rd to 12th grade, as we move towards digital curriculum and really needing to be one to world. Deferred maintenance projects, that includes the San Ramon roof. If you've ever been over at San Ramon, you know that was deeply in need of replacement over there, as well as some other deferred maintenance projects, sewer maintenance, other not so sexy things, but really, really important things to running a school district, as well as IT infrastructure updates. So that includes updating all of our technology to be able to really work in the 21st century, all the way from internet down to the wireless access points in every individual classroom. In terms of the projects that are moving forward, at San Marin High School, there's going to be a full renovation of the Performing Arts Center. There is a brand new 15,000 square foot STEM center. And if you don't know, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math, really to support the STEM Marin program over there, as well as the whole campus. And also a secondary field that will be used by our sports teams, especially the soccer teams in the winter. As you knew, we had a very wet winter, and it's going to be great to have another field there. But another great thing about that is it's going to get a tremendous amount of community use, not just from youth teams, but adult teams as well. At Novato High School, we have a brand new state-of-the-art performing arts center, a brand new theater to support the Marin School for the Arts, as well as the rest of the campus and district-wide for programs. We're also having a large 13,000 square foot STEM center and another secondary turf field over there. The other projects that were approved were air conditioning over at San Jose. It gets a little warm in Novato sometimes, and their top priority was air conditioning, so that will be put in next summer, actually. The Sinaloa gym is going to be replaced. If you've ever been into the Sinaloa gym, you know why. And the Linwood campus is going to get a full facelift, including a new community center, as well as the food service facility being moved off of that campus. So those are some really wonderful projects that we're going to be working on. And with that, I will turn it back over to Superintendent Hogaboom.
All right, so that just about wraps it up, and wanted to make sure you have our contact information. That's mine. All of our contact information on our website is our first initial last name. So mine's jhogaboom@nusd.org. Leslie Benjamin, our, again, Director of Communication, and Gladys Batts is my amazing executive assistant. So feel free to call us or get a hold of us anytime. We think we're pretty responsive. We try to get back to you the same day or the next day. And with that, I'll take any questions that anybody might have. Yes, Jerry.
Jim, is your presentation online, or can we?
Yes, we will post the presentation online. And there's a lot of other, if you want to find out more about the bond information, for example, that's on there, the facilities or each of the schools. So the website's pretty thorough. Thanks for asking. Yes, Lisa.
Regarding the budgets, it looks like reserves are going to be declining, and I guess at the rate's 0 in 5 years, right? So when do we signal the red alerts, and when do we see a plan for what will happen with our
That's a great question. So the question is about our budget, and if you saw it, we have a structural deficit every year. We're going down, so the time to address that is now. So we'll be forming a budget advisory committee, and really just to reiterate what Yancey said, there's three main reasons for that. One, revenue has leveled off, so the local control funding formula increased everybody up to a certain level. We're just about there now, so it's pretty much flat funding. That combined with declining enrollment is hurting our income, and when you combine that with those huge, increases in state teacher retirement system and public employees retirement system, we're at $6 million, and the increase from 8 to 20% about. And yeah, I think we're all happy that the pension systems are being made whole, right? So that there's not, but it really was balanced completely on the back of the school district. The state contribution and the individual contribution stayed about the same, and really it's the district. So we are actually, less money is coming in when you look at it, and people don't necessarily know that. So we need a budget advisory committee that's going to have to help us make some cuts. So we're going to have to look at staffing, and we're going to have to look at what we're spending, and we're going to get that going in October, November, December, and make some recommendations to the board, because obviously we can't keep spending more money than we're bringing in. And it's hard, I'm glad you guys are here, because it's hard to explain that. Last time we went through the recession, it was obvious, well, we're in a recession, we've got a lot less money. Right now, people look at the money coming to schools, and it's about flat. So well, why do you need to make these cuts? And it really does, the state teachers retirement system and PERS there's going to be some districts that aren't going to be able to have the reserves that we have, and they're going to go bankrupt unless the state does something. So it's just not affordable to keep maintaining those pension systems. So we'll do what we can in the meantime, but as usual, the state legislature probably won't act until there's some school districts that will go bankrupt because of that. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Yes, Michael.
I was just curious, does the school district participate in the state's facility bond program? Specifically, since you guys just don't have the measure that was passed, are you looking at matching some of those funds?
Yeah, so the question is about the state bond measure, and as you know, probably from last bond measure in November, they did add some money to it. It was kind of empty and bare for a while. But we, at the last bond measure, we applied for and received a lot of the state bond monies as matching for the last time we were around in the bond measure in 2004. So we still are applying for some matching dollars that are available, but there's not a lot that's left there. And just to reiterate that, I don't think that going out for bond measures is a good way to do public policy, and it's asking a lot of you guys in our community to pay those parcel taxes for that. I would just reiterate that we don't get any money for state for facilities, none. So we are required to put 3% of our budget into routine restricted maintenance, but that just comes out off the top of our money that goes to pay for teachers and students and everything else. So we get no state facilities money. So again, I know that passing local bond measures is not a good way to go, but we have to rely on our community because we don't get it. So otherwise, if we don't pass a bond, it's just trying to maintain what we have. So thanks to you guys for passing this measure and the one before, that helps us to do some of those things that we need to do. Yes?
So piggybacking on that question, so that's why our campus is like paint is peeling and things aren't working and buildings are old because we get no state funding.
That's right. So we kind of just do the minimal maintenance. Yeah, a roof leaks. Okay, we're going to fix it. But there's not money there to build any new buildings or whatever because we just don't get any state money. Yeah, well, we try to put some routine restricted money in there, but it's a pretty minimal level.
Okay, and then one more time question was, you said that we're second, so we get the second lowest amount of the per student state funding.
Yes.
Why is that? We're in a very expensive county.
Yeah, so there's this thing that Yancey didn't go into called basic aid funding, and what that means is, so with the local control funding formula, that's helped to equalize it, but just so you know, funding for schools in California and throughout the nation is totally inequitable. It's completely different in different places. And the local control funding formula tried to even that out a little bit. But because of basic aid funding, what that means is if your local control funding formula dollars are, let's say, $10,000 per kid, if your community brings in more local property taxes and brings in $15,000 per kid, then the state lets you keep that. So there's about 100 basic aid school districts in the state. So the state doesn't take that money back. So it's hard for us to compete with TAM because I think TAM gets about $17,000 per kid and we get 10. So they're able to pay their teachers a lot more. So Novato, I think, is one of the few districts, half of Santa Fe district, that's not a basic aid district. So again, it's hard for us, people say, why don't you pay your teachers more? Well, if we got, $7,000 more per kid, we'd be able to do some of that. So it's totally, like I said, an inequitable situation that most people don't know about. So, again, if you gave everybody the same amount of money, and Yancey also mentioned the state average, which I think throughout the nation, I think they more spend along lines of 20,000 per kid, and we're spending about 10 or 11. So there's a big inequity in state funding for schools. Yes, Regina?
Is there an expectation that the facilities improvements that are going to be funded through the bond measure will actually lead to greater revenue in the future, either by rentals to the community or increased enrollment, especially in high school?
I don't think so. So the question was, is there going to be more revenue coming in because of what we're doing? And it'll help some. For example, the Performing Arts Theater, we can rent that out, so that would help some. We do have people pay for our fields. So people have facilities use when they rent our fields and things. But I mean, overall in our budget, I'm not sure what percent. It'll help a little bit, obviously, if we can rent those things out. But it's not with an $80 million budget, renting out those facilities. It'll help a little, but not a lot, I guess is what I would say. Yes.
What's causing the decline in enrollment?
We need to have more kids. So basically, the decline in enrollment is because I think in our kindergarten class we had about 500 students this year, and we have a bubble going through our high schools that have like 600 or 650. So that's where the decline is coming in. To Regina, to the second part of your question, we are trying to come up with programs that attract students to our district. We think the dual enrollment, the dual immersion program is going to attract parents who want their kids to be bilingual, which is a great asset to have. MSA attracts kids here, the STEM program. So we're trying to make our districts and push that so that we can get more kids coming in. But we need our younger people, like, is Tim still here? Have more kids. And he has one on the way, so there you go. Yes?
So recently saw a decline in our grade school rating. Do you have any insight on what caused that, and what can we do to address that as a community?
Yeah, so Great School is kind of a rating system of your schools for a whole bunch of different areas, and some of our schools have gone down. And I would say that, again, math is one of our key points that we're looking at, not only at high school, but middle school and elementary. And that's a problem actually throughout the state. And just real briefly, without going into it, I think that it's kind of what we're teaching, and the shift to the Common Core in math in particular is pretty dramatic in terms of what we asking kids to be critical thinkers and problem solvers. And we never asked them to do that before. We basically asked them to memorize a formula and plug it in. So some of it is a shift in what we're teaching. Some of it's a shift in how we're teaching that, and we want kids to work together in groups collaboratively, and so there's a shift to that. And then the third part of that is grading. We really need, and we are looking at our grading practices, especially at the high school. I mean, if 40% of our kids are failing geometry, there's a problem there. So, and it's not just grading, obviously, it's how we're teaching it and all that, but the grading practices. So we've sent about half of our math teachers last year to up in Portland, a grading conference. The rest will go this year. So it's kind of there's no one easy answer. And there's some work we need to do in literacy as well, in reading, but I would say math is really what we're trying to focus on right now. We'll do one last question, Coy. Yes, sir.
Regarding your budget advisory committee, how and when you guys are looking for put that together?
Yeah, we're looking at that right now. So we're trying to get a great combination of people from all of our schools. We're trying to get teachers and parents and community members and students all together. And I think we're going to have about 25 people that'll be on that. So, again, we'll present, here's all the information in a lot more detail than you guys got tonight, and really take a look at all the areas we can cut. But again, we're a people business. 85% of our budget goes towards people. So if you're looking at making cuts in education, you're really talking about some staffing adjustments. And with that, Coy standing over you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Going back to the decline in enrollment, do you keep statistics of how many families in Novato's kids go to private schools and why?
Yeah, we do. So that's a great question. The question is, when people are leaving, why? So actually, we do a follow-up with all the students who leave and ask them, why did you leave? And some of them moved, or if you went to private school, what was the reason you go to private school? So yeah, we keep track of that, and Leslie's putting that together right now. We sent a survey out to them, and actually we get a pretty good response rate to try to find out why it is that people are leaving.
What's the percentage of the kids? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I don't know that, Leslie. Do you know the percentage of students that go to private school? Or
No, in the last survey, I'm just off the top of my head, I looked at it real briefly, it's like half of them have moved out of the area.
Well, we'll try to put that information out there, and we try to look at it, yeah, like, well, obviously, if we're not meeting needs of certain families, then we want to do a better job of doing that, yeah. Yes?
Going back to the rankings, I mean, specifically 2 years ago, Little Verde was an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fantastic. I think this year it's a 5. So with the new mathematics, with the Common Core, if that's the way that we're teaching them, is there a way to scale that back and go back to the basics? Or are we going with the Common Core and we're going to widen it out?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's a tough issue, and there's not one answer for that. I would say that I think most teachers and educators believe that the shift to the Common Core was a great thing. I personally do, because it's getting kids to think critically. And so if you look at the 8 mathematical practices, for example, and look at not only math but language arts, they've simplified it, they've clarified it, but it does mean we're going to have to teach in a different way. But one of the things we're talking about doing that we might not have done the best job with is looking at anchor standards. So if you look at American curriculum in general compared to other countries, we try to teach too much. We try to cover way too much. So what happens is we're covering all this stuff, and then the kids don't remember any of it. So what we're talking about right now is really looking deeply into these anchor standards. What are the most important, crucial concept knowledges that our kids have to have, and then how do we assess that? And so the Common Core has been around for 5 years or so now. So we, I think, need to do a better job of saying what are the most important things in 3rd grade math we need to cover, and are we going to cover those? So one of the things we're looking at right now, and we have curriculum committees in math, language arts, social studies, and English. So one of the things we're going to be looking at is making sure that they know what those anchor standards are, and then making sure that we assess those. Yes, Joe. Uh-huh.
But who's working with our our school administrators? Who's working with our principals? Are they receiving continuing education? Is somebody holding them accountable for goals?
Yeah, so that's me. I work with all of our principals, and I think that one of the things I forgot to say was I think Novato's a perfect size. It's a perfect size school district where we have 14 schools. I can work directly with all the principals. I can get to all of our schools. We're not too small. We're not too big. So I'm just in the middle of goal setting meetings right now. Each of our schools has to come up with a single plan for school achievement. And in there, we are looking at data, not only the CASP data that's just coming out like today, but also other data that we use. We use MAP assessments. We're assessing those skills. So basically what we're asking them to do is look over the staff, with their staff, where are they strong, where are they weak, and their single plans identify what they're going to do with that. So I hold them personally accountable for their school goals, and I meet with them 3 times a year right now to set the goals and then to check in the middle and the end. And they also participate in our professional development. So right now we have a project-based learning is a methodology that we want all kids to be more actively engaged in their learning. In math, it's more about problem-based learning. So our principals take part in all those trainings that we give as well. So we meet with them once a month as all administrators, once a month with this principal. So I'm the one that really holds them accountable for their school goals. George, did you have a question?
Yeah, I would just a comment. I would, if this was directed at Leslie, I would take a look at housing pricing. You know, that's the cost of overall living that we have in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, what are we doing to keep the kids and keep the families in Nevada?
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are 2 equations that are 2 bits of the equation.
Yeah, one of the things we look at to that point really is surveys, really, right? So what's working, what's not working, what ideas do you guys have for improvement and to make things better? Because that's really important to us to make sure that we're responsive to what our community needs. So we'll be around for a little while if you guys have some more questions, but totally appreciate your taking the time to come and be with us today. That's the contact information, and thanks so much for coming, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I just wanted to let you know this was aired live by Novato Community Television, and you can go to Novato Community Television's YouTube site and watch it over and over. They'll air it again. But it is on there, so if you weren't able to attend, others can see it on a regular basis. I think it's good for you to understand and know what the schools are about, because the biggest thing that can happen in a town like ours is rumors. And now you're educated about what the school district does, what it's going to do, so you can talk positively about where it is, where it's going, what it's going to do. It's good for you, it's good for your business, it's good for the community. So let's hope we make this an annual tradition.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you all.